Day, hearties. Welcome to the Hearties Hotline this St. Patrick's Day. You've got Cammy the Hooked Hearty here, and you've got Sarah, whose favorite color just happens to be green. So it's all serendipity.
Hi, Hearties.
My father's side of the family is Irish, so, you know.
Fabulous.
And it is Kevin McGarry's birthday week. It was his birthday yesterday. So happy birthday, Kevin. Even though Nathan was a bit of a jerk in this episode, oh my gosh, I cannot believe. Okay, number one, you were right. Sarah was right there. I said it.
She said it.
I cannot believe he did that to her. Yes, it was brief, but I still cannot believe he did that to her. That's just mean.
Well, okay, so let's start there. Last week on our podcast, we did talk about the previews and how it appeared that Nathan would have some amnesia. And yes, I said, well, what if he's joking? So as we're watching this scene, and he asked for her. He asked for Elizabeth to come in. To be fair, when he said, "Who are you?" she should have known that he was kidding, because maybe, but when you think about it, I mean, things can happen that quickly. So they can. Especially with the brain. But that was the part that got me. So I was like, oh, well, obviously he's kidding. He's asking for her. He
asked for you 2 minutes ago.
Oh.
The other thing is
that was not the only time he was a kidder. He was quite full of mischief in this episode.
Oh my gosh. Oh my word. I feel like using the devil emoji with the smile, because that was him this entire time.
And it's kind of funny because, I mean, think about just when somebody's like hurt and they can't do anything for themselves, they kind of do get a little mischievous and try to like kind of,
because they get antsy.
They get antsy. They don't have anything else to do. They have, you know, he's sitting there all day long in the infirmary, probably coming up with ideas for things.
And there's no television. So
there's no television. I mean, Allie's not there to keep him company. Other people are visiting, sure, but he's got a lot of time on his hands, and he is a funny guy. So why not just kind of have a little fun with people and get some ice cream out of it?
Okay, so first of all, I feel the need to say, Hearties, we're trying something a little different this time. Both of us have watched the episode one time, and we have taken minimal notes. So this is going to be a hot takes. This is going to be a hot takes recap. So we're going to see how this works. And these are our hot takes on Nathan.
Yes. And the one time I watched it, I was also live tweeting. So
right.
You have more notes than I do, which I feel like you always have more notes than I do. But you still have more notes than I do.
The Hearties know me and my notebook. It's a thing. Okay, it is a thing. But the other thing is, and this is a very small detail, but if he had truly lost his memory and didn't know who Elizabeth was the first person who actually welcomed him into town. Mm-hmm. And so if
he lost his recent memory.
Yeah, if he didn't remember her, he would have been freaking out by everyone else around him.
Because he wouldn't know where he was.
He wouldn't know where he was. He wouldn't know Molly. He definitely wouldn't know May. And so he would just be freaking out. And even when you're hurt and oh, it hurts to laugh. Well, then don't make jokes like that, Nathan. but even if you're hurt, you're gonna be freaking out and you're going to be whipping around as much as you possibly can. So that was another tiny little clue that he was letting Molly actually put ice on him, and he was letting May be close to him and treat him and things like that. So yeah, that was another clue. Okay, so I saw that Chris McNally tweeted, "Give Nathan an inch," and I retweeted it and I quoted it and I said, "And he'll take 2 scoops."
In a cone.
In a cone. And then he starts pouring on the whole guilt trip thing. Oh,
so here's my question. So here's my question. Do you think this was him being a kidder and wanting ice cream? Or do you think there was a little bit more to this conversation?
I really want to say this is just him wanting ice cream. You know, and
which I think is perfectly logical if it is, because when you're hurt, you just, like I said, I mean, your kids take advantage of you when they're homesick or injured, and they guilt trip you about anything. And it could be that he was just being really good natured because Lucas had done this amazing, kind gesture out of nowhere.
Him ice cream.
Out of nowhere. How nice.
How nice.
Or how guilty.
Nathan going, oh, it's delicious.
Or how guilty does he feel? Like, you know, maybe there is a tiny bit to that he's trying to be the bigger person because he's the one that has to be the bigger person because he's the one that got Elizabeth.
It's definitely possible that Lucas was harboring some feelings of guilt and he wanted to do something nice. But, you know, in the beginning, when they're trying to find out the person who did it, Lucas immediately volunteers to drive off to Union City to see what he could find. You know, it was everyone pulling together to try to find out who did this to their Mountie.
Yes. So no, I think there was potentially some of both.
I agree with you. I think there was some of both. I think that Lucas was just trying to be nice, but then maybe he was feeling a little bit guilty, and not necessarily guilty, but just more bad. You know, I feel bad. I'm the one that got Elizabeth out of this big, huge thing that we've been doing for probably over
very long time.
Yeah, for over a year now. And now you've been hit by a car. Here you go, man. You know, take some ice cream.
The least I can do is get you some ice cream.
But then, I don't know if Nathan was just being good-natured or he was kind of jumping on that. You know, like, well,
it did seem like maybe he was pushing the envelope a little farther than he would have with someone else.
Just a little bit. Yeah. And I mean, because when he said, Lucas, can you get me more ice cream? I was like, oh. And I mean, Lucas was doing it. You know, it wasn't like Lucas was reluctant or anything. He was doing it. But then Nathan goes into this whole thing. Well, you don't have to. If you're doing it out of guilt, I'm like, oh, honey, please just stop talking. This brain concussion is affecting your brain. Just stop.
He had fun with it, though. I mean, I think Kevin had fun with it. I think that was
Kevin had a ball. You can tell that Kevin had a ball with this.
And speaking of that, I do want to bring up, recently saw from another interview that Kevin ad-libbed from episode 1 the extra great comment when they were at the saloon, and Elizabeth and Lucas both said great. Kevin threw in the third great. and they decided to keep it because it was just too funny about just the dynamic that those three have. So to know that that wasn't even the writer's idea, because I know some people have commented, let the triangle go away, but sometimes it's not even the writers that come up with these ideas, and it played really well, and it was funny and cute. So that I found that very interesting that Kevin threw that in there.
It played very well. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Kevin's having a little too much fun in there. Let's talk about the other Nathan and Elizabeth scene when she brings him the cards, because now if he wasn't digging a little bit with Lucas, he was definitely digging a little bit with Elizabeth.
Okay. How so? What's your take?
Well, I mean, she says Newton wouldn't even let me near him. And he jumps on that and says, he's always been a great judge of character. And just looking at her from out of the corner of his eye, and she says, is this how it's going to be between us? Yeah, pretty much. I'm like, whoo! Being laid up is giving you time to think.
Yeah. He did do it in a playful manner. It wasn't like he was truly digging at her. And what I also thought was great. What I also thought was great, though, was the way that Faith picked up on the humor. So when she came in and saw that, and what did Elizabeth say? Something about things were about to get uncomfortable, or something like that.
Things were about to get unpleasant between us.
And Faith just kind of laughed and said, "Okay, time to go," or something like that.
Visiting hours are over.
That was when Lucas walked in, and Lucas walked in with just a little bit more of a joke, and it was just like, nope, we're done.
Out.
Doctor's orders.
But I loved that Lucas brought the letter from Allie. And then I don't know why this hit me so hard, but it hit me kind of hard that Lucas was the one that gave him his hat. And that it was so beaten up. It kind of shows what he went through.
Now, did that scene happen after the ice cream scene?
Yes.
Okay, because I'm sorry, you could have cleaned that up a little bit. That was almost like him getting back at him a little bit in a playful manner. I mean, I don't think he ruined it. I think it was like that.
No.
But like, you could have popped it back out. You could have brushed it off. It was covered in dirt. Like you.
Yeah, but I mean, he seemed to do it.
Look on his face.
Lucas did?
Yes, that was right when Faith said, "Okay, visiting hours are over."
I thought he did it very, not reverently, but I thought he did it very respectfully. Like, Mountie, here's your hat, like an acknowledgement of what he'd gone through.
It's possible. I took it a little bit
Hot
in a different
takes.
way.
Hot takes.
Hot takes. We're gonna rewatch this and see what we think the next time.
Okay. Jerome Smith drops the charges like that.
Crazy.
And then has a very confusing conversation where he says that he left the North Pacific Mining Company. And then when Henry starts to look moved by that, he laughs at him and says, if you don't join in with us, you'll regret it. What are you trying to do?
Oh, how is that helpful? He just seems so two-faced.
He does.
And I don't know if that's his intention or if he was simply doing the nice thing because Lucas told him to. And then
I
he was
like
just like,
that.
"I'm
I
over
liked
it."
that.
And then he's just like, I'm over this nice thing. It's not working.
But when
Which is
Lucas
actually
says,
really fun because-
do the right thing, I was like, whoa.
So I'm not sure I'm following all of this. Lucas wants to sell his shares. I get that. He was upfront about that. So he's thinking of selling his shares to Jerome.
That's what it looks like.
And then would that in theory put Jerome in charge, like have a majority stakeholder kind of a thing?
I don't believe
Because
so. I don't
or are they just wanting all of the people that have shares to agree to keep Henry on? Because he seemed like he was trying to convince him of something in order to take this deal. So that's the part I wasn't certain on. Like, why is he trying to convince him to keep Henry on?
That's a good question.
Unless he's going to have some sort of majority stakeholders. But then what I want to bring up is if Mike Hickam gives his shares to Fiona, who already has shares, does she then become a majority stakeholder that nobody realized could happen?
Entirely possible.
And then she could overrule Jerome.
Mm-hmm.
So
which I don't think Jerome would be very happy about that. He strikes me as a man who is very, very, very traditional, not progressive, and not willing to move into the 20th century, as Lee said. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that there's just a few things there that I'm wondering if the deal that he thinks he's making is actually going to be the deal he wants.
Knowing Lucas and the way he does business and the way he was so downtrodden when he found out about the history, I don't think that he would do anything that would put Jerome in a position above Henry, because he knows how terribly that would sting.
I mean, I would normally say that, but I was just so surprised that he's looking at selling to Jerome while Jerome and Henry are such at odds.
Yeah, that's something to look at and to be on the watch for. But now Jerome's
but he also said there was some really good deal he was putting on the table. So maybe there's something in this deal we don't know about.
Maybe.
Seemed a little odd that that's who he would sell to.
Yeah. So Hardy's, let us know what you think, because this is our hot take after watching one time and kind of distractedly. Let's go to that mayoral race.
Which took a little bit longer than we thought it would to get through the race. Get results.
You know what? But the very second before Ned said inconclusive, I said it. The second before I said it's inconclusive, he's like, inconclusive. I told you. You know.
Well,
so
that was actually in a preview, so I knew that already.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
Not in the one I saw. So there.
Okay. I've known that for a while.
So it went on a little longer.
We had to recount ballots.
And okay, we were both wrong in this. We both thought Lee was going to get elected mayor.
We did.
We did. Now, I love Mike's enthusiasm.
I normally love Mike's enthusiasm. I didn't love his enthusiasm in his first scene as mayor. I love Ben, and he played it very well.
I loved how he was so shocked that he actually won, and so he's celebrating a little too much in front of his other opponents. Yeah. And then he I want to say, you know.
Yeah.
But at the and then when he was getting his shave, I thought that was, I don't know that it would be a conflict of interest for him to own a major share of the petroleum company. I don't see that as a problem, but maybe it does.
I mean, I think on the outside looking in, it's really smart of him to want there to be no apparent conflicts of interest.
Yeah.
However,
to just give them to Fiona like that,
I feel like that's happening for another reason, potentially in the storyline. Like it could help Fiona to have them. But also, Gowan was mayor and had his hands in everything. So
everything.
I don't feel like there's a law against it right now. I feel like it comes like 25,000 times more like appropriate with his business dealings than Gowan was as mayor.
Yeah.
So probably not big of a deal. Probably not anything anyone in town would complain about.
No.
But on the same, on that flip side, it impresses me that he would be that upstanding to make that gesture.
Absolutely. And then, and then for him to give the shares, not sell them to Fiona, give them. And then if they need to sell, then they'll settle up. But for him to just place them in her hands like that shows an incredible amount of trust. It's a huge, grand gesture of something. I don't know if it's friendship. I don't know if it's a really, really good business move, or if, he's still hoping that little seeds of romance are going to be filtered in with those shares,
Right. And having said that, it could be an unsettling thing of him just giving them to her. So I'm really glad also that they did mention
settling,
that there'd be a compensation at some point.
Yeah.
But that right now that's not the focus and the worry, and that he just wants them in good hands. So I'm glad that there wasn't that awkwardness of like, but you're just gonna like give me something that's worth a lot of money.
So speaking of worry, did it worry you that the mayor of the town had nothing to add when asked by the preacher?
Okay, so two things about that scene. One was, I feel awkward that the preacher's asking the mayor to speak during the service.
Very awkward that the preacher is asking the mayor to comment on a Sunday service. But
I feel like that was just an awkward moment anyway. Like maybe we could have had somebody ask him to speak in a much more public setting in which it would have made sense. And then he still could have acted that way and not known what to say. Because that was the point of it, right? Is to show that he doesn't really have public speaking skills so much. And to maybe have people wonder how he's going to do at this job. So it was kind of twofold in that, yeah, he probably should have something to say, or at least tried to say something, even if it didn't come out very eloquently. But also that's a really awkward place to be asked to speak, and you would be very put on the spot. I don't care what my role is, even if I'm the town mayor. Somebody asked me to just all of a sudden speak at church, and you had no idea about something random that wasn't even like, I wouldn't have anything prepared. I would feel a little awkward.
You kidding? It happens to me all the time.
You are much better at being in the public eye.
So, do you think this is over?
No.
I don't either.
No. It not because it's Hickam.
No.
Hickam, I do still think, especially from a lot of the things the character has said throughout the last couple episodes and the end of last season when he was talking about, throwing his hat in the race. I do think he would be a great mayor. the way they're playing it
Yes.
leads me to believe that there's more to this story and that potentially it's not gonna stick.
Well, and the other thing is they're not showing Bill's disappointment almost at all. You know, they showed him with Lee at the table when Mike was coming in all excited and then tried to speak very professionally. But we're seeing a lot more of Lee's reaction and Lee's disappointment and how this was what Lee felt was his second calling. So it could be a red herring, but I don't know. I feel like
there's just something. Yeah, something's coming.
Something's coming, don't know when, but it's soon, guys. I'm sorry. I couldn't help it. You said the words.
I say a lot of words. There's probably a song for all of them.
Almost. But when you say the exact phrase, I can't. I'm sorry, I can't. So
one reason I love you.
I know.
Anyway,
let's talk about Lee and Rosemary, two people who love each other very much.
Speaking of, if you think something's gonna stick, not about their romance. They're the perfect couple. I don't know about this new job of his.
The managing editor under his wife as editor-in-chief. It makes a lot more sense of the sneak peek we saw about the race when Lee says, "Sweetheart, I thought I was covering the race." So that makes a whole lot more sense now.
Okay, I missed that line when I saw it.
Yeah, but I like that she is jumping in there to try to give him a purpose and to try to, because he's had such a disappointment. So I don't know exactly what to think.
So what was good about this is that it showed that, because we keep talking about how much Rosemary's grown, how just what an amazing character she is. This brought a little bit of the old Rosemary back for me, because it was a wonderful gesture and a wonderful idea to offer this position to him, but she's not letting him do it.
Not really.
And in fact, you're standing in front of my window. You're just, what will be my window,
and holding her hands out for the phone. Yeah, thought so. Rosemary Coulter, really? Yes. Come on, honey.
So, and if you really, really think about it, like, this is why I don't think it's gonna stick, is because it's not his calling.
No, it's hers.
It's helping her. And that's a great thing for him to do in the interim while he's trying to figure out what his next thing is. But to think that he can just help her with something that is her calling, that's not what he's looking for.
No, he needs his own calling.
It's a great thing for him to do and to support her. And he does support her all the time, whether he
100,
works with paper or not. He could pitch in here and there to help her out, like he did getting the printing press out so that she could do her first paper. You know, he's still going to be there for her and be helping from time to time, but this is not his thing.
Yeah.
Something needs to come. And so I know everybody's wondering what's going to happen with them this season, because they're supposed to have this huge arc, according to everybody behind the scenes. Interesting that he just randomly brought up how she would be a great mother. That hasn't come up for a while.
No.
So, okie dokie. So we'll just leave that there.
We'll just leave that one thing I have to add before we move on from them, that last paragraph of his acceptance speech, can we talk?
Oh,
Gosh. Oh my
So-
gosh.
so sweet.
We don't hear him talk about my wife, Rosemary, very often. We just hear her referred to as Rosemary, even with him. And, we don't hear him refer to her as Mrs. Coulter very often, or Rosemary Coulter. And even though she was reading it out loud, they were his words. And for me to hear the words, I especially want to thank my wife, Rosemary, who helps me, I can't quote it, but do more, be better. Oh,
It was so beautiful. And because it was so beautiful, I wish we'd gotten to hear the whole speech, because there was probably some other great moments in that.
There probably was.
And something tells me he would have very graciously thanked Bill and Mike.
Oh,
in
100%.
a very different way than Mike reacted.
Okay, so speaking of being out of place, moving on, let's go to Cooper. That was the very last thing that I ever expected to come out of that boy's mouth.
True.
I did not expect that for a second. He doesn't want to go to church as a pastor's son. Now, I've kind of been in that position where my father was in a leadership position in the church. And yeah, it's not easy, but I never wanted to stop going to church because of it. But I have seen it happen to other people. So it's a tale as old as time.
It is. And I think that the key that really makes it realistic is that he's got all these other factors. He's got these other situations that have happened to his family, with his sister's disability, with having some form of some discrimination happening against their family in the past.
Yeah.
And so he's just at that age where he's questioning everything and why things are happening to them and why things have happened to his sister instead of him. Like, well, why didn't the bad stuff happen to me? Why is it happening to other people? And so it makes perfect sense that he's struggling with it and questioning it. And so I don't know. To me, it seemed like a very realistic story. And even though I didn't see it coming, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Everything from last episode makes sense now.
Here's
when he's arguing with the sister outside the church.
Oh yeah.
After the service.
Oh yeah. Here's one thing that didn't make sense to me though. Number one, it was absolutely hysterical when Henry goes in front of the class. Don't fight.
Oh, yes, the actual things he said. That was
Don't fight. Eat your vegetables. But when Cooper said, but you suck him in the nose, right, Mr. Gowan? And he says, Henry says to everybody, if we hurt one another, we just end up in pain. And then Cooper looks shocked. They even went in really tight on just his face. And I thought, what are Gowan's words doing to him?
It just seemed like such a powerful scene that was affecting him in some way. And I think it made him see things in a different light than he had been. I think he's rebelling against his dad's view of communication and faith and, all these really positive things that he's getting from his parents. And he's rebelling against that because he doesn't feel like they make sense to him right now. And so in his mind, somebody like Gowan is like the opposite of his dad. And then to hear him say something along the same lines of what his dad would say,
yeah,
probably was really meaningful, even if he doesn't fully know why yet. I think that it's like, oh, somebody who's the complete opposite might have that same message and might have that same feeling. Maybe my dad's not wrong.
Yeah, maybe dad's not wrong. Shocking.
It's hard to believe everything your parents tell you.
My dad's right. No, but it's very, I'm going to be very, very interested to see where this goes, because I got hit really hard by both moments when Cooper says he doesn't want to go to church, and then when Cooper is that shocked by Henry's words. Both of those moments hit me really hard, and I just thought, it brings a lot of questions to mind, and I want to see where this goes.
Absolutely. And I want to just point out too how, I don't even know how to say this, the combination of Joseph and Minnie together. It's so amazing to watch how here
when he's trying to snitch.
with the way Joseph is the pastor, but here he's having this difficult personal situation with his child, and here she has to kind of talk him down and be like,
yeah,
that's not anybody's business what they think of your own son. That's between Cooper and God. And then he's all, oh, you want to do the sermon? Because it's like, okay, you're schooling me on what I should be, I should be the one to know that.
And let's not forget the moment when he tries to snitch. What were those, muffins or something?
Oh, I think it was muffins. Oh, that was so funny.
They're too hot for him to handle. So that's what happens when you snitch, Joseph.
That was very cute.
But like you said, even in the serious moments and in the light moments, Joseph and Minnie are such an amazing combination.
They complement each other so well.
Very, very, very well. Especially now that Minnie has let go of a lot of the bitterness that was in her last season.
Yeah.
So she is now a member of the community. She's not holding herself back. She's not holding her children back. Or I should say her child, because she never tried.
I was thinking she was going to have a heart attack when Robert came by on the bicycle and I
feel like I'm flying.
The bike with him with no hands. Oh,
Joseph was the one who said, I'm worried more about Angela and that boy.
He was not worried about the bicycle itself, though.
No, I'm shocked at that, actually. But
that's what I thought Mom would be upset about.
But Minnie's kind of, patting his arm like, oh, stop it. You're not freaking out that your blind girl is on the back of a bicycle that's going not slowly,
It was going quite fast and almost ran into people. So,
out of the way!
Anyway.
Coming through!
Oh my goodness.
All right, I want to talk about May for just a second, because
it was a smaller part for her, but some interesting details.
May the horse whisperer. But just that I really liked how Elizabeth acknowledged to May, not just to Nathan, but acknowledged to May, I saw you. You were doing fabulously with Newton, because I mean, Elizabeth's pride could have gotten in the way. Like, wouldn't want me touch him, dang horse, and but it didn't. She was very kind, very sweet, very gracious, and May was gracious right back. And she knew what she was doing with Newton. Newton trusted her and let her heal him. And I think she said that it was just the second time with that poultice, and he's already looking better. I really liked the scene with Bill and May, because
that was great.
I never would have put those two together in a million years in a scene. I would never have thought to put them in a scene by themselves.
But not only did they play off each other well, like as actors, but that was a good little moment to be like, oh, we're keep the suspicion. She may need some legal help.
She needs an attorney.
Don't let your guard down with May yet.
Nuh-uh.
Happening. I still don't think it's going to end up being anything catastrophic. Just, I don't think. But
I'm wrapping my scarf around my hand. Apparently, the talk about May is making me a little nervous. But I feel like May is the way I was thinking about Bill in season 2. Obviously, I know she's going to turn out to be a good person. I don't think that she has any diabolical motives or anything like that, but I'm wary of her. What's
still
going on with you, Missy?
There is still something she's hiding.
Yeah.
I will say though, with May, I love how she just made it short, sweet, and simple with Ned. It's like, would you have hired me if I was a woman?
He can't say yes right away.
Right. He can't. And I think that's really obvious based on his reaction when she showed up. He didn't really seem concerned about anything but that.
Yeah.
So
strange.
And I don't hold that against him. Again.
No. He thought he was conversing with a man, so that's what he expected.
So that was just his intention and expectation. But I do think if you look at it from that perspective, it makes sense that could be the legal trouble she could think that she's going to get for misrepresenting herself to the Yosts.
You think that Ned would do something like that?
I don't, but I'm trying to find very simple ways to explain things away. There could be very simple. She might think that she doesn't know them. She might think they're going to get her in trouble.
Now that's true. She does not know them. So she is probably trying to cover all her bases.
So it's possible. I do feel like there's more that we don't know, but
yeah,
there could be some simple explanations for some of it.
Okay, 2 more things I want to mention before we wrap up here. Number 1, Fiona gets in the carriage with Jerome Smith.
That was bizarre.
It was bizarre. She has no idea where she's going, but she's going with a packed suitcase.
And why is he leaving if he hasn't finalized things with Lucas yet? And he was surprised that she joined him as well.
The whole situation is strange. It's very strange, and I'll be curious to see how everything pans out, and I hope we get a good solid explanation for all of this, because right now it's confusing.
Yeah.
It's really confusing. All right, and then the last shot of the episode.
Oh, hang on.
Oh, what did I forget?
Well, I mean, we might want to talk about Elizabeth just a little bit.
Why?
Couple really amazing scenes. I have to bring up the teacup. I'm sorry, that was adorable.
Why are you saying sorry? That was adorable. I loved that scene.
I'm sorry.
You're talking to me here, honey.
If anybody didn't see it, Peter DeLuise tweeted a close-up photo of the teacup. You guys have to look for that. It's a beautiful teacup. And I love that Elizabeth found this like connection to, it looked like a boat that her family owned when she was a child, which is another great little detail about her family that we didn't know.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to picture all the Thatchers on a boat. just everybody pause for a second and picture that.
Let's focus on the fact that she brought that teacup back from Hamilton for Lucas. Let's focus on that.
Yes. And I thought it was a perfect moment to be, first of all, bringing him this tiny little gift that she got him because she thought of him, and it made a connection with her personal history.
Yeah.
But also was a teacup, so we know Lucas is gonna love it.
Of course. It's a new teacup that sees all.
Right? Like he needs to have another one in case the first one's dirty, because he uses it all the time. And so she knew he would love it. It's a connection to her. It's the perfect gift. And then in this perfect little tiny gift, she has this amazing conversation about how important the little moments are, and that they don't all have to be over the top grand gestures like the air balloon.
And he caught on very quickly.
It's gonna take some adjustment for him. It clearly is not his forte, but
he caught on very quickly.
on and did several lovely small gestures. And quite honestly, that's another factor that really could have played into his decision to take ice cream to Nathan, is that kind of like an olive branch. As a gesture to Nathan, it's a gesture to Elizabeth that he's trying, and that he's trying to put the past behind them and all be friends and move on.
That's a good point. That's a really, really good point. My favorite line was, "You are a very fast learner." Well, I have the very best teacher.
And I loved the interruption from Ned right before they could kiss.
That's a new one. That's a new one. Ned got interrupted all the time, but when he was trying to kiss Florence last season, now Ned's interrupting. He's getting even.
Was pretty fun.
He's getting even.
Now, not that all of the amazing scenes with Elizabeth and Lucas weren't enough, but my favorite scene was Elizabeth and Gowan.
I loved that. I really did.
It had a hint of humor. She couldn't get the door open from when he crowbarred it open.
Hammered it open, more like.
and so that was funny. But I gotta tell you, this scene, not only was it beautiful, there's something
nostalgic.
No, but there's something more going on. The way, I mean, they hardly said anything, quite honestly. There were very few words in this conversation, and yet there was a lot of emotion. There was a lot of reactions to what the other person said. There is still a lot going on that we do not know about.
Well, and we found out two things. We found out Christopher and Rachel are getting married.
Oh my gosh, Gowan could be a grandpa sometime.
Gowan as a grandpa. Wow. Try to picture that. But we found out that at least part of his trip was going to see Abigail.
So when this was actually said, Elizabeth teared up. And then I can't remember exactly how she phrased it. It was something like,
she said,
"You'll never know how much that meant to her."
It meant the world to her. That's what she said.
So,
it meant the world that you rode out to see her, or something along those lines.
Okay, so we've had a lot of hypotheses about this, especially with Abigail on the When Hope Calls Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
I detected a lot of sadness in Elizabeth's look on her face when she said that, which leads me to believe that whatever happened on that visit maybe didn't end well between Abigail and Gowan, or maybe didn't end the way Gowan wanted it to.
I don't know.
It
I was thinking that
so sad.
I was just thinking that it was sad that he had to leave.
And that could be also. But there was just this note of sadness, and I like how she was kind of already sad and he brought it up. He's like, "I know that you and Abigail write frequently." It's like, I know that's why you're here.
Could it be that Elizabeth was just simply missing her? And
Maybe.
So talking about her made her sad?
Maybe. I wonder if they got to a point where unspoken things were finally spoken. And maybe that.
You mean Henry and Abigail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe they weren't at a point to then do anything about it. And that was something that they just had to move on from at that moment, not that it's over.
Yeah. Well, and obviously Henry felt the need to come back and oversee some things business-wise. So maybe Henry's just coming back for a short time to get affairs in order. I mean, who knows?
So he
really?
said, "I can't outrun my past. I have to see what I can do to fix it."
And that's certainly what he's doing. He's on
which
a
is
mission
very
to fix things.
It's
Sometimes
very
he bumbles. Sometimes he bumbles over fixing.
Mm-hmm.
But he's on a mission to fix, like you were saying last week.
Yeah.
And his last shot, he was the last shot in the episode.
He was. And really quick, what was the line that he said at the oil? Was it to Jerome, or was it to, I didn't write it down. There was another line he said about, to Fiona, when Fiona told him what she had done. And he said something to her about needing to watch out for the people you care about.
Fiona says, "I saw the opportunity to put together a big business deal and I lost sight of people involved." And I did not write down what
whatever he said
back.
Whatever it was he said, it was basically like he took that in, and it was almost like he started to get upset with her, and then he stopped and he said something about, "You can't lose sight of the people involved."
Something like that.
And I tweeted that and Brian retweeted it. So he's either really good at his pot stirring, which we know he is, or this meant something.
Maybe.
It seemed like he was thinking of something in particular. And I almost thought maybe he's thinking of Abigail and the mine disaster and how he didn't think about the people involved when he was trying to run the mine.
Well, we saw season 1 and season 2. He was the villain of the town. He was not thinking of anybody involved. He was just stomping his way to the top of whatever situation he was involved in. So,
which is true, but depending upon Jerome's involvement in that as well.
Yeah. But what
he was being led to believe certain things.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is he's learning from his past mistakes, because that's the way he was. He did not think about the people involved. He was just trying to fix the circumstance, or trying to fix his involvement with the circumstance, or something like that. Yeah. But now he's considering the people involved.
Yeah.
Too bad he doesn't consider himself more.
Right. That last scene was just heartbreaking.
It was. He was going. So he was
excited watching
in.
I was so uplifted watching him walk towards the church and seeing him turn around. I was just,
it was heartbreaking.
He's not ready. I get that. He needs to have more closure with whatever's going on in his head right now. And I wanted to also point out, I forgot to bring it up last week. Think about where he was a few years ago. And there was a scene where he was in jail a few years ago, and Abigail came in and they prayed together. And now he was in jail here, and Minnie came in and prayed, and he just stood there and watched.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just amazed at his character arc.
Well, and the other thing is, when he was talking to Abigail from jail, he was saying that he was justified almost in doing what he did, because he grew up with nothing. He was a sharecropper's child. And this time around, when he's in jail, it's not all about him. I mean, when Bill came in and said Nathan's been hit by an automobile, first thing out of Henry's mouth, is he all right? That's not something old Henry would have said. He wouldn't have cared. He said, okay, when are you going to let me out of here? But he
wouldn't have jumped up that fast. He was genuinely concerned.
He was genuinely concerned. And he was baffled when Bill came in and said that Jerome dropped the charges. He still left, and he was happy to be a free man, but he didn't do any of this, well, it's about time, or anything like that. He just was baffled. And
he said a few times this season, he deserves it.
Yeah.
He deserves to be there. So it's so different from his attitude the last time we saw him in that cell.
Yeah. Yeah, this season is definitely not starting out as jaw-dropping as season 8, because I remember in episode 2 of season 8 that all of us were still sweeping up our jaws off the floor. but
it might not have had as many like shocking moments, but I feel like there was everything was deeper.
Intriguing. Very intriguing moments that keep us guessing, keep us wondering. You know, you're right. The shock value wasn't there, but dang, our wheels are turning.
Yes.
So they're just going to have to keep on turning until next week. So that is what we are going to leave you with for season 9, episode 2, Out Like a Lamb. And happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
Bye, Hearties.
Bye, guys.